All right, guys. So 5A, let's do number 5. Eraser. Okay, so let's read through it on the worksheet together. You want to determine the typical dietary habits of students enrolled at a particular college. Which of the following would make the best sample and why? Explain why each of the other choices would not make a good sample for this study. Okay, so we're talking about what people eat at a particular college. Okay, all right, let's just go through the choices. Number 1, or the first one, students who live on campus. Think about why or why not this would make a good or bad sample for this study. What are some of the reasons? Well, if students live on campus, where would they eat? Probably at the dining hall, right? They're probably not eating a lot of like home cooked meals. So they probably all eat pretty similar things. Okay. What about students majoring in the health sciences? They're really interested in health or exercise or something like that. They may eat healthier, right? Okay, that's something to think about. What about students who participate in sports? They might eat healthier, people have said before, or maybe they eat more calories because they're exercising all the time, they're doing these sports all the time. They might eat a lot of, protein or something like that if they're working out trying to build muscle. Okay. What about students enrolled in a required writing course? What does that have to do with food choices? Nothing, right? If a writing course is required, that means everyone at the college would have to take it, whether they're a commuter student or they live on campus in the dorms. Health sciences, math, automotive, culinary, anything, business would all have to take that writing course. People that play sports, people that don't. So that's a pretty good distribution, right, of people from all different groups. So I would say for number 5, students enrolled in a required writing course is the best answer. And you could explain why. So number 5 will be like some questions, or like a question possibly on the test, where you have to pick one, but you have to use reasoning and explain your answer. Right, you can't just pick one and say, that's it, but I need to know why. Just like 1 or 2 sentences, tell me why. All right. Number 6. Let's look at number 6. Let's talk about the different sampling methods. So I'm going to go through the list of sampling methods. So now we're on number 6. I'm going to talk about the sampling methods. So at the beginning of this worksheet, we talked about what a sample is, but now we're going to talk about, well, how do we choose that sample? Just like in number 5, right, there is a best choice. And depending on what kind of a study you're doing, there may be a better or best choice, or choices that you definitely might not want to use. So let's talk about the sampling methods. The first one is called the simple random. Simple random sample. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's completely random. So an example of that might be if I'm walking around campus trying to figure out about, what kind of food they like to eat. And I walk up to someone and I say, what type of foods do you like to eat? And then I walk a while and I pass by a few people and then I find another person and they're with a group of 10 people. Well, maybe I'll pick all of those people, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll only pick 2 of them. It's totally random. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Maybe I'll even email a few students at the same time. Okay, so it's completely random. There's no pattern. There's really no reason. So simple random is random. Let's talk about the next one. That's systematic. Systematic looks like the word system, right? There is a system, and it's picking every 10th person, or every 5th student, or every 100th name in the phone book. Picking people in certain intervals, okay? Picking people in my handwriting is getting worse, certain intervals. So every 10th person you decide to give a survey to. Okay, it could be every 100th, every 1,000th name when you're going through the phone book, something like that. Systematic. Convenient sampling. Convenient sampling, that's the next one. Sampling everyone from a certain group to represent a larger group. So again, say I wanted to talk about what type of people or what foods people eat on campus. If I sampled everyone in that one required writing course, that would technically be, if it's just one class, it would technically be a convenient sample. I'm just choosing one class to represent the entire school. V-E-N-I-E-N-C-E. Convenient sampling. So sampling everyone from a math class to represent the entire school. We're going to do examples of these, of course, in a second. Class to represent the school. It's kind of like picking one small, already established group. That's probably a better way to put it. Picking one smaller, already established group to represent the larger group. So picking small, established, like a class. Group to represent larger group. So by established group, what I mean is like a class or a sports team or something like that. And then the last type is stratified. This one's a little weird to explain. It's sampling from each of smaller subgroups. So the last one is ST, stratified. This is picking from smaller subgroups. Okay, so let's not get it confused with the one above it. Stratified is, for example, if I walk into my colleague's math class and I just pick 3 people from that class and I ask them about what kind of food they prefer. Then I go into a different colleague's math class and I ask 3 people from that class what they prefer. And then I walk across the hall to an English class and I say, okay, what about these 3 people? What kind of food do they eat? So it's picking tiny little groups from other tiny little groups, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of strange. But let's use these definitions as we go through number 6. I still highly suggest you take notes. You can pause the video here if you want to write down these notes. I still highly suggest you take notes just like if you were in class. Writing something down and hearing it and seeing it all at the same time really help you retain it better, and it will help you on the test. I promise. I'm not just saying that. I'm learning about it in my master's classes that I'm taking. Really interesting stuff. Okay. Number 6. Identify the sampling method. Okay, the ones we just talked about. In each situation described below. Okay. An IRS auditor randomly selects for audits 30 taxpayers in each of the filing status categories. Single, head of household, married filing jointly, and married filing separately. What type of sampling is that? What do you think? Stratified is the answer for that one. Stratified. Why is it stratified? Well, because they're first breaking down the taxpayers into categories, and then they're picking 30 people out of each category. So if you're taking a group and breaking it down into categories and then picking people out of each category, that was just like my example I gave with going into a math class, picking 3 people, going into another math class, picking another 3, then an English class in 3. Okay, so that would be stratified. The second one, excuse me, every 100th computer chip produced is given a reliability test, right? They do this. This is called quality control, right? What kind of sampling is that? That would be systematic. Picking every 100th computer chip is systematic. Okay. What about the third one? A study of antidepressants selects 50 participants between the ages of 20 and 29, 50 between the ages of 30 and 39, and 50 between the ages of 40 and 49. What kind of sampling is that? That would be stratified too. I'm like pretending you're at home, like stratified. Yeah, of course. That would be stratified too. They're breaking it down into your 20s, your 30s, and your 40s, and then they're taking 50 from each of those groups. Good. The fourth one. A computer randomly selects 400 names from a list of all registered voters. Those selected are surveyed to predict who will win the election for mayor. What kind of study is that? Simple random. Good. It's just randomly selected 400 names. So maybe there's like a bucket of names you could picture and they're just picking them out. Or they have every single name and it's a computer program is probably more likely, right? And they're just going through and it's picking all of the names and someone's calling them up and saying, who'd you vote for? All right. A taste test for chips and salsa is conducted at the entrance to a supermarket. What is it? I would call this one convenience. It's most likely convenience because they're sampling everyone that's going into the supermarket. That's kind of like a small group of people. This group of people going to the supermarket, they're surveying about or taste testing for the chips and salsa. Some of those you could make an argument about that it's different. Again, on the test, I would say identify the sampling method, and then I would say explain your choice. So you'd give me a sentence or two about why you picked what you did. And if you have any questions, like about could this be this because of this, or again, feel free to email me. That's what I'm here for. All right. I'm going to erase the board. Oh, I already did. Yeah. Let's do number 7. What are we doing? Now we're going to talk about experiment versus observational studies. These are pretty self-explanatory, I think. An experiment is something you might do in a science class, right? You come up with a test and you do that test to find out some information. An observational study is you observe. It's something that's already happening. So let's talk about those two. Again, experiment is a test. And an observational is something you see. All right. So number 7, in a study of the effects of magnets on back pain, some participants were treated with magnets, while others were given non-magnetic objects with a similar appearance. The magnets did not appear to be effective in treating the back pain. Is this an experiment or an observational study? And let me add, and why? Explain your answer. What do you guys think? I think an experiment, right? It's something they planned. They've said, okay, we're going to give this group magnets. We're going to give this group things that aren't magnets but kind of look like them. And we're going to record the results and we'll come up with some conclusions. So number 7 is an experiment. Let's go to number 8. Using a survey of 35,000 Americans, the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life determined that between 47 and 59% of adults switch their religious affiliation at least once in their lives. Is this an experiment or an observational study? Be careful that the word survey doesn't throw you off to thinking it always has to be an experiment. That's not true. Did they test these people, or did they just say, tell us about yourselves and we're gonna observe. We're gonna record what you say. It was the second way, right? We're observing that 47 to 59% of adults switch their religious affiliation. So number 8 is observational. Let's do number 9. What about number 9? For each question below, What type of statistical study is most likely to lead to an answer? What about the first one? Does Fortify garden fertilizer produce larger tomatoes? I would say an experiment with that one, right? You could set up an experiment. You could give some not Fortify and you could give some Fortify and see which ones grow larger. You could probably make a case for observational, but I think that one's harder to make a case for. What about the second one? Which of 8 airlines has the lowest percentage of delayed flights? Probably observational, right? You can look at the delayed flights for all of the airlines and just make an observation, collect some data and observe what's true. What about the third one? Which NFL league team has the lineman with the greatest average weight? Observational, right? You could look at the weights, add them together, take the average and just observe. Couldn't really set up an experiment for that one. You couldn't throw your own lineman in there. That doesn't work. What about the last one? Does taking a multivitamin daily reduce the incidence of strokes? Which one would you choose on that one? Think about it and tell me why while I erase. This would be a good one for a test, this last one. Because I think you could make a case for either answer for 9, the fourth one down. Does taking a multivitamin daily reduce the incidence of strokes? You could, of course, set up an experiment. You could have people take multivitamins daily for their entire life and have people not take them and then compare who has strokes over a period of, 50, 60 years. Or you could make observations, right? You could see the people that have strokes and find out if they have been taking a daily multivitamin or not. On number 9, I would accept either answer with an explanation. Again, no credit on the test when I'll ask you to explain. You won't get credit for just telling me one or the other. You'll need to give me some explanation. Okay. All right, number 10. And that's it for 5A. This is 40 minutes. That's about right. That's about a class, right? Number 10, a poll is conducted the day before an election for state senator. There are only 2 candidates running. The poll shows that 53% of the voters surveyed favor the incumbent with a margin of error of plus or minus 2.5 percentage points. Should the incumbent plan a victory party? Why or why not? Let's talk about margin of error. Number 10. You guys ever heard that term? Margin of error. So, 3%, right? With a margin of error. That means that plus 2.5% and minus 2.5%. So the survey that the poll, that they're doing could be off by 2.5% in this direction. That would be 55.5% of people. Or it could be off by 2.5% in this direction, and that would be 50.5% of people. So somewhere between 50.5% and 55.5%, somewhere in here is the true number. So should that person plan a victory party? Yes, right? No matter what, it's more than 50%. It's more than 50% no matter what. So the answer is yes. They're winning. You're going to hear a lot about margin of error coming up pretty soon. Or you may have heard about it already with elections. We'll hear about polls and all that good stuff. So that's 5A. The homework will be due, you'll see it in my math lab for the due date for either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Hope you guys are doing well. Email me with any questions anytime. I'll see you soon.